Welcome to Podkey Wellness, where today it's purpose, memory, movement, and making smarter choices. A lot of this episode comes down to a simple idea. Tiny decisions and tiny habits shape the way a life feels. Who you're for, what you pay attention to, how you move, how you connect, even how you judge your own decisions. All of it adds up faster than we think. One of the clearest starting points for purpose came from two blunt questions. Who's it for? And what's it for? That's Seth Godin's way of forcing honesty. If the answer is everybody, or kind of everything, you probably don't have clarity yet. There's also a more personal layer here. Dacher Keltner points to core strengths like knowledge, courage, kindness, justice, transcendence, and creativity as clues to calling. When daily actions line up with those strengths, life tends to feel less random and more meaningful. There's biology behind that too. Purposeful states are linked to sharper focus and dopamine-driven energy, while purposelessness can feel flat and listless. Goal setting matters because it helps engage reward circuits that support sustained motivation, not just a quick burst of enthusiasm on a Monday morning. And in older adults, so-called superagers show preserved or enlarged anterior cingulate cortex, a brain region tied to goal-directed effort, and the willingness to take on challenges. So purpose isn't only a nice philosophy, it appears to have a real neural footprint. All sounds like it should require mountains or symphonies. But the useful version here is much smaller and much more repeatable. A daily 1-minute awe habit has been linked with lower depression, anxiety, and stress, along with boosts in dopamine, vagal activity, immune function, and heart health. In veterans, structured awe exercises were associated with a 32% reduction in PTSD rates, which is a striking result for something that sounds so gentle. There are also awe walks, where people deliberately notice both tiny details and larger surroundings. In adults over 75, those walks lowered reported pain, and an early 6-year follow-up suggested slower cognitive decline than controls. The bigger message is that rituals still matter. Noticing a flower, a sunrise, a smile, those simple beauties can create meaning without costing anything. For a lot of people, restoring small rituals may be one practical way to push back against that modern sense of drift. Connection doesn't always have to be deep, scheduled, and color-coded on a calendar. Tiny interactions, eye contact, a quick greeting, 5 minutes of real micro-connection can buffer loneliness in meaningful ways and may lift well-being as much as longer formal social activities. Intergenerational contact stands out too. Older adults who teach, mentor, or spend meaningful time with grandchildren may get modest memory benefits, partly because they're actively retrieving memories and knowledge. The younger side benefits too, because lived experience carries a kind of depth you can't really get from a search bar. On learning, the counterintuitive takeaway is that making practice a little harder often helps memory more. Errorful retrieval means you try to recall something before you get the answer. That attempt, even if it's wrong, helps create a stronger memory trace than just rereading. A classic example is trying to draw the Apple logo from memory. Most people are confident right up until the pen hits the page. Classroom research finds the same pattern. Generating answers and then correcting errors leads to deeper encoding and longer retention than making everything feel easy. And semantic processing helps even more. If you connect material to what it means, what it does, or how it changes behavior, recall tends to last longer than if you only memorize labels. Memory is not a recording, it's reconstructive, which is why the same person can remember the same event differently over time. That helps explain unreliable eyewitness testimony, including cases like Ronald Cotton's, where confidence and accuracy came apart in devastating ways. High confidence is not proof. Repeated exposure or repeated identification can reshape a memory, make it feel more familiar, and actually inflate confidence while reducing correctness. Emotion complicates this in a different way. Emotional arousal engages the amygdala and tags events for stronger consolidation. Even mild emotions, embarrassment, low-grade fear, that kind of thing, can improve later recall of contextual or spatial details because those neurochemicals nudge synaptic plasticity. Technology adds another twist. Taking photos can either strengthen memory by signaling importance or weaken it by outsourcing the encoding. And digital reminders, along with deepfakes and familiarity-based scams, create new problems, especially for older adults who may be targeted by things that feel recognizable and therefore trustworthy. Some of the strongest brain health evidence here is refreshingly ordinary. Walk more. Randomized trials show that walking 3 to 4 times a week for about 30 to 40 minutes can increase hippocampal volume by roughly 1%, which helps offset the usual age-related shrinkage after 50%. Those participants also showed better memory a year later. Balance training matters too. One-leg stands and Tai Chi help preserve proprioception, reduce fall risk, and are linked with better memory retention. That fall piece is bigger than it sounds, because avoiding falls helps people avoid the downward loop, where they move less, get weaker, and then decline faster. There's also the subjective age finding. People over 40 tend to feel about 20% younger than their chronological age, and that felt age predicts lifespan better than many biological markers. Part of that may be behavioral. Feeling younger often goes along with staying socially and cognitively engaged, which is exactly the kind of thing that supports healthier aging. A useful decision rule from Annie Duke, cited by Seth Godin, is to judge a choice by the process and the information available at the time, not by the outcome alone. Luck can make a good decision look bad and a bad decision look brilliant, at least temporarily. That same clarity shows up in business advice. If you try to serve everyone, you usually serve no one very well. A hairdresser for women with curly hair, or a driver who transports collectible cars is easier to understand, easier to refer, and often more valuable because the niche is so defined. Who you serve also shapes your actual life. Choosing better clients changes your workload, your reputation, and the texture of your days. There's a distinction here too between freelancers and entrepreneurs. Freelancers mostly trade time for money. Entrepreneurs build systems or assets that can keep working without them doing every single task. To think more flexibly, one suggested exercise is writing 3 different 3-page plans instead of getting emotionally married to the first idea. And then there's the dip. Sometimes you should quit strategically if the slog has no real inflection point. Other times the pain is temporary and pushing through creates dominance. Even selling anxiety can be trained. A low-stakes exercise like offering something worth $10 for 5 teaches that the fear is often about asking, not about the value itself. Finally, measure what actually matters. Views, likes, and star ratings can be vanity metrics if they distract from the real question, which is how many people you helped or sold to because they truly needed the solution. And for your own sanity, not every 1-star review deserves residency in your nervous system. That's the roundup for today. A little more purpose, a little more awe, and maybe a slightly healthier suspicion of your own memory. Thanks for spending time with Podkey Wellness. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.